Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so have you ever actually stopped to think about the good deeds you do every single day? Like helping a neighbor, maybe donating a few bucks to a charity, or honestly, just trying to be a decent human being. We usually think of these actions as these really solid, permanent deposits into some giant cosmic bank account of good karma. But what if I told you that without one very specific foundational intention, all of our everyday good deeds are actually incredibly fragile? Like they're super fleeting and so easily destroyed. It sounds crazy, right? But today, we're going to unpack a core paradox from some ancient philosophical texts. We're looking into exactly why just doing good isn't enough, and why the intention behind your action is literally everything. Here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with ordinary virtue versus bodhicitta. Then we'll look at Master Tsongkhapa's deep insight, followed by morning and evening anchors. After that, we'll hit your daily chores checklist, move into facing adversity and wrongdoing, and wrap it all up with rejoicing and dedicating merit.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1, Ordinary Virtue versus Bodhicitta.
So the revered ancient scholar Shantideva drops a pretty uncomfortable truth on us here. He points out that on its own, our everyday virtue is fundamentally weak. It's kind of a hard pill to swallow, right? But think about it. When we're faced with the overwhelming power of our own negative habits, our anger, our ego, which he calls evil in this context, our standard good deeds barely stand a chance. They just get steamrolled. He says that without a specific anchor, no ordinary virtue can win, period. And that anchor? It's called bodhicitta. If you're not familiar with the term, bodhicitta is the ultimate, purely altruistic intention to reach complete enlightenment, or Buddhahood, specifically so you can benefit all other sentient beings. Now let's compare the two. When we do good deeds primarily for ourselves, maybe we're looking for a good reputation, a quick hit of temporary happiness, or just a pat on the back. The results are super temporary. They're incredibly fragile. The ancient texts use this really vivid analogy. They compare anger to a forest fire. Just a single moment of intense rage can literally burn up all that fragile good karma you've worked so hard to build. Poof, it's gone. But on the flip side, when a deed is done with bodhicitta, done with that sincere, deep-rooted wish to benefit everyone else, it actually changes the very molecular structure of the action. The merit suddenly becomes infinite, and more importantly, it becomes indestructible. It elevates a basic, everyday good deed into what's known as the Mahayana path, which basically turns completely ordinary moments into this profound, unstoppable spiritual journey. Moving right along to Section 2, Master Tsongkhapa's deep insight. So Master Tsongkhapa, who is this absolute towering figure in Tibetan philosophy, gives us a stunningly clear analogy to help us wrap our heads around this. He teaches that if you lack this altruistic core intention, your virtues just don't cross the threshold into true, liberating spiritual practice. He compares doing good without bodhicitta to a completely dry field. Imagine you have the absolute best, most expensive, highest quality seeds on the market. Those seeds represent your outwardly grand actions, like, say, donating millions of dollars. But if you take those incredible seeds and plant them in a field with zero water, absolutely nothing is going to grow. It's literally impossible. Without the life-giving water of bodhicitta, you get zero spiritual harvest. To understand why this rule is so absolute, we have to look over at the Avatamsika Sutra, which drops this massive concept. Everything is created by the mind. Now, in this specific context, the foundational mind they're talking about, that's bodhicitta. It is the absolute key driving force behind everything. You can think of it as this magical filter that takes completely ordinary, mundane actions and transmutes them into something universally meaningful and sacred. The big takeaway here is that it's not the action itself that holds the ultimate power. It's the mind, the intention, driving it. Let's hammer this home with one more analogy. Think of a beautiful lamp, but it has absolutely no oil in it. If you have no bodhicitta, your good deeds are just sparks. Sure, they might shine really brightly for a brief, beautiful little moment, but they're inevitably going to burn out. They just don't have a sustained fuel source. We absolutely need that constant fuel for our virtues to endure, and that fuel is nothing other than the genuine, unwavering wish to benefit others. Okay, let's get super practical. Section 3, Morning and Evening Anchors. This is where the rubber really meets the road. The most crucial point is how you set the stage for your day before the world even gets a chance to start making demands on you. When you wake up, before you check your phone, before you even think about your to-do list, immediately recite a short phrase, something like, "May everything I do today benefit others and lead to Buddhahood." By taking just 2 seconds to generate bodhicitta right upon waking, you are actively planting that root intention. Going back to our analogy, you are literally watering the field before the seeds of the day are even sown. It's such a simple but powerful step to help anybody, from beginners to experts, easily cultivate this mindset in daily life.
But come on, we all know how it goes. That great morning motivation usually starts to drift by lunchtime, right? That is exactly why their practice encourages a daily self-reflection, ideally 3 times a day. It's super easy. You just pause whatever you're doing and ask yourself, did my thoughts deviate from altruistic goals today? It's a quick, real-time diagnostic check to examine your motivations. And look, if you find your ego has completely taken the wheel again, which happens to all of us, this question just allows you to gently and quickly course correct right back to a wider, more compassionate perspective.
Which naturally leads us to Section 4, your daily chores checklist. Now, you might be thinking, I have too much going on, I don't have time for spiritual practice. But the ancient masters tell us that sweeping the floor, cooking dinner, working at your desk, or raising your kids aren't just secular duties. They are the actual spiritual practice, provided you hold the right intention. Imagine you're sweeping the kitchen floor, but you're actively thinking, may this act of cleaning remove the suffering and confusion from the minds of all beings. Boom! You have just turned a tedious household chore into a profound Mahayana practice. Having a simple checklist in your head like this reminds us that we can constantly generate infinite merit through the absolute most ordinary activities, just by shifting our internal narrative. All right, now for the really tough stuff. Section 5, facing adversity and wrongdoing. So when we have to deal with difficult people or messy situations, our absolute default setting is usually anger or judgment, right? Well, this practice asks you to entirely flip the script and replace that reaction with a deliberate wish for their growth. When you witness someone doing something wrong, cultivate compassion by wishing for them to attain wisdom, rather than just getting mad. When you're stuck talking to someone incredibly arrogant, instead of rolling your eyes and feeling annoyed, wish them the peace of humility, and then maybe use it as a mirror to check your own pride. And when you face criticism, oh man, instead of getting super defensive, try to view it as a custom-made opportunity to practice patience. You are literally taking the negativity of others and using it as premium fuel for your own spiritual growth. It's a total game changer. And honestly, it gets even deeper when you're the one dealing with personal adversity, when you face physical illness, deep life difficulties, or just unexpected roadblocks. The advanced practice here is to actually transform that very suffering. How do you do that? By actively wishing to take on the suffering of all sentient beings through your own current pain. You take a moment where you naturally feel like a victim, and you turn it into a powerful, heroic vow. You dedicate your discomfort right then and there to relieving the pain of others. Let me tell you, it completely rewires your relationship to suffering. Let's move on to our final step, Section 6, rejoicing and dedicating merit. I love this part. Here is an absolute secret weapon in spiritual practice, rejoicing. When you see people who are highly successful, really wealthy, or out there performing amazing good deeds, our cultural default is almost always envy, or we start comparing ourselves to them. But if you can actually genuinely rejoice in their merit, like truly feel joy in your heart for their success, you magically expand the scope and capacity of your own practice. You gather immense merit simply by being thrilled for someone else's good karma, and you don't even have to physically do the action yourself. It expands your heart immensely. It's brilliant. And finally, just as we anchored our morning, we have to anchor the end of our actions and the end of our day. This is your dedication checklist. After you do any good deed, whether you just donated money, finished a really hard day of work, or honestly just managed to keep your patience with a toddler, you must dedicate the merit. Before you go to sleep, recite a short vow, either silently or out loud. You're basically offering up all the positive energy you created that day to the ultimate liberation of all beings. This acts as a seal. It locks your good deeds in safe and sound, preventing them from being burned away by any future anger, and it transforms a finite, limited little action into something completely boundless. So we have covered a whole lot of ground today, from the terrifying fragility of our everyday actions to the absolutely profound, world-altering power of our minds. The big overarching takeaway from all these ancient texts is that true practice isn't about the grand scale or the sheer volume of what you do. It's entirely 100% about the heart behind it. A tiny action with a vast altruistic intention literally changes the universe. Meanwhile, a massive action with a selfish intention, it really changes nothing at all. So I want to leave you with this one question to ponder as you step away from this explainer and back into your day. What intention is going to drive your very next action?